Okay, well, welcome to our Baylor Lawyers Service panel. We have 4 Baylor lawyers with us today who are going to talk about their experiences at Baylor Law and in the practice of law and the importance of service. So we will go ahead and get started with introductions. So I'll just call on each of y'all. If you could kind of say name, where you're from originally, where you attended undergrad, what year you graduated from Baylor Law, and what your practice area is now. So Haley, we'll start with you.
Okay. I am from Gainesville, Florida, and I went to the University of Miami for undergrad, and then I graduated from Baylor Law in 2018. And now I am a staff attorney at Lone Star Legal Aid in Belton.
Excellent. Okay, Artie?
Hello, everyone. I was born in Temple, Texas, but then relocated to Florida at a young age, where I attended the University of Central Florida, so not too far from Haley. And I don't even want to say I'm so much older than everyone else. I graduated from Baylor in 2001 and then returned to Florida to practice law, and currently live here in Winter Haven, Florida, and have my own firm.
Excellent. Okay, Judge?
Hello, hello. Originally from Fort Worth, so North Texas area. Attended Baylor for law school in 2007. Before that, for undergrad, I went to Texas Wesleyan University. It's in Fort Worth. And then now I'm judge for the city of Denton Municipal Court. So still back up here to North Texas.
Excellent. And last but not least, and please tell me how you pronounce your first name.
Hi, I'm Reka Rorty. I'm from Austin, Texas, which is where I still live now. And I went to Baylor for undergrad and for law school, so double bear. Graduated in 2014 from law school, 2010 from undergrad. And I practiced construction litigation and real estate litigation.
Excellent. So if y'all, the other kind of introductory question, if y'all could each answer, did you go straight from undergrad into law school? And if you did not, what did you do kind of in between? That's a question we get a lot from prospective or admitted students is, if they should take time off, and they're always interested to hear what people do. So whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can jump in. So I actually took a pretty small break between law school and undergrad, which was one of the nice things about Baylor Law, having different times when you can enter throughout the year rather than just starting in the fall. You could start fall, spring, summer, which was awesome. I graduated a semester early from college, so I graduated December 2010 and started law school in May of 2011. So I had a pretty short gap between law school and undergrad. My degree was in psychology, so in that time I worked in mental health, and so I wasn't really working in the legal field. What I wish I had done was just graduated a full year early and taken a year between law school and undergrad, and I really wish I'd worked as a paralegal. I have a couple paralegals who have worked under me who went to law school after working as a paralegal for a couple years, and they've made way better grades their first year than I did. So I think it helps a lot.
I did take time off also, but about 6 months to actually work at my father's law firm. Don't know that resulted in me making better grades, but I did have kind of a feel for what I wanted to study in law school, which I ended up completely pivoting after graduating. So I don't know that I would do that again. I think I would have probably gone straight through. So I think it's just a personal preference. I don't know that it gave me a leg up, but other people certainly have different experiences.
Okay, great. So now we will kind of look back on your time at Baylor Law, if you can think back to that. So if you can think back to that, and y'all don't all have to answer, but as many of you who want to can. Why did you choose Baylor Law, and what was your favorite thing about Baylor Law?
I can jump in. Okay. I chose Baylor Law because I knew I wanted to be a litigator when I started law school, and having gone to Baylor for undergrad, I'd heard tons of people talk about how Baylor Law was kind of the litigation boot camp. And I heard a lot of people talk about the experiences they had from there. I knew I wanted to stay in Texas, and I applied to a lot of different Texas schools. But in the end, I felt like Baylor offered a curriculum that was pretty tailored to what I wanted to do in my actual practice.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing drew me in, like the litigation and the focus on practical skills was also a big part. Those kind of go hand in hand, but they're not necessarily the same thing.
My father was a Baylor Law graduate and obtained his LLM in tax law at University of Florida, but he always pushed Baylor Law. So I always knew UCF, I went there for undergrad because that was paid for, so it made sense to do that, but I knew I was going to attend Baylor Law, and he knew that when I followed in his footsteps, I would come out being able to take on cases and being prepared, and that I'd also be safe on Baylor campus and with the community. So
for me, it's along the same line. So a Baylor professor stressed that, you know, you'll be prepared whether you're entering the courtroom or the boardroom. So it's not necessarily that it's only for litigators, but it's helpful that you have that kind of experience in law school of trying mock trial cases as well. So if you are going into transactional, you'll at least have some kind of experience, at least in law school, of having tried a big case before. But along the same lines, that the transactional or litigation approach was what drew me in. I didn't have any attorneys in my family, but definitely touring campus and how gorgeous the building is, and right there on the river, and it's a great place to study and to kind of immerse yourself into the legal field.
Great. So this is the service panel. So I want to start talking about service a little bit. All of y'all are in kind of service heavy professions. Do you remember Baylor Law placing a heavy emphasis on service? And then you personally, have you always been involved in service? And can you just tell me why you think it's so important? So I'll call on people this time. So Artie, if you want to go first.
I don't remember, again, I'm older, so I don't remember Baylor having a lot of opportunities for service, but it could have been that I was just trying to keep up with my reading and courses and so forth. But I certainly, upon graduation, I was prepared to take on service. I just today passed the gavel of being the chair of the Winter Haven Chamber of Commerce. So it prepared me to make meaningful contacts, to have networking and so forth. And I think it gave me the confidence to be able to go into a board with powerful players in my community and hold my own. So that I'm certainly qualified to sit on those boards and have service with my practice.
Excellent. Okay, Tyler?
I think it was definitely talked about. I think the structure came a little bit after I left, the structure around service. I've followed some of what Baylor Law is doing, and it's amazing. I think it was more driven from the individuals going into law school kind of expect to have those kind of group experiences, dynamics around being able to make a difference in their community wherever they're at, including the 3 years of in law school. So I think it's awesome what they're doing now. It was definitely modeled for us. The professors brought in, they had law clinics where they brought in members from the community to come in and learn. The People's Law School, I think, is what it was called. So it's definitely spoken about by professors that it's very important to be involved in pro bono efforts. And then also it was modeled by the professors while I was there.
Great. Okay, Reka.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with what Tyler was saying. I definitely felt like it was modeled quite a bit by the professors. Specifically, I remember Professor Fusilier put a lot of emphasis on Adoption Day and really made people feel excited about participating in it. And she did make it a really clear thing to everybody that, you know, this is something that we need to do because you're given a lot of power as an attorney in the community. You need to give back to the community as well. And People's Law School Day as well, they had us volunteer for that. I thought there was a lot of modeled service going on at the law school. And I thought even in our first couple days of law school, they had our class get together and go work on a Habitat for Humanity project together as a class. And not only was that a good bonding experience, but it really set the foundation for service throughout our Baylor Law experience.
Great. And then Haley is our most recent grad. To you.
Yeah, so I do think you're right that there's more structure to it now, or at least recently. I think it was my intro to law class that Professor Fusilier came in, and there was, of course, talk about Adoption Day and the People's Law School. That's still big. The Veterans Clinic. Honestly, the opportunities have expanded, and I think the emphasis on it has expanded, especially I know Dean Tobin puts a lot of emphasis on service and encourages it. So between that and then the Public Interest Legal Society and the things that we did through that, there was a lot of opportunities I really enjoyed getting involved with.
Great. Okay, so last kind of law school focused question. Were you involved with any extracurriculars at Baylor Law? And did you find those beneficial to you once you were out in practice? That's one option for a question. The other one you can talk about is kind of how did you manage work-life balance, that elusive work-life balance in law school? So whoever wants to answer.
I can jump in.
Okay.
You're not calling on us. So Baylor is challenging. I mean, nobody kind of goes into it thinking it's going to be easy. A lot of people go into Baylor Law School for the purpose of being challenged. That's kind of the goal, is to learn legal profession. And so it's a great aspect. I was married, had first kid a few days before practice court started. So wife was in labor, and we had to finish up like a law school final. It wasn't like active labor, but yeah, it was so rushed in, got final taken, and then went and had first kid, and then practice court started immediately the following week. So balancing out having a family, but also going to law school is doable. There's lots of support among the faculty for making that happen, but it definitely excluded me from doing a lot of other things, being involved in extracurriculars while in law school. But work-life balance is doable. Assistant Dean helped a lot with scheduling and kind of working through what that would look like with practice court studies. So it was a lot, but it's doable.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
I agree. There is a lot going on while in school, and definitely, especially being on the quarter system, sometimes it feels like you're taking final exams or midterms, every week. So it is really hard to achieve a work-life balance, which does make even participating in extracurricular activities a little difficult. I did participate a lot in the immigration clinic. I did that for a year. I felt like you had to really learn how to schedule things. And if you wanted to be able to achieve something, you really had to make time for it, and you had to plan ahead. You couldn't just wing it. That, I think, is a skill that helps me today still. Because as a practicing lawyer, I didn't have children in law school. I have a child now. And trying to manage my house, trying to manage my work, trying to manage my volunteering, it definitely is something you have to plan for, and you have to be used to scheduling things and not just trying to wing it. So I do think that was something that helped me a lot in law school.
Yeah, so I spoke a little bit. The things I listed off were all things that I have been involved with, or had been involved with when I was at Baylor. And on top of that, I was also a court-appointed special advocate for one case. And I think the main thing was that in terms of balancing time is that I just had to have good expectations of what I actually had time to do, like not overstretching myself. So when I was going into practice court, I knew that I wasn't going to commit the time and the effort that I needed to continue on as a CASA. And so I took care of what I needed to make sure that the case was taken care of, but that I was able to focus when I needed to, and kind of applied the same with with the Public Interest Legal Society, just kind of figuring out when you have time and when you don't, and actually and scheduling helps with that, to actually just don't overstretch yourself. I think that's easy to do when there's a lot of opportunities. And I will be the first to admit that there was one quarter in law school that I did do that. And I learned from it. And I think that learning from it has helped, now when I have a lot of other obligations to worry about.
That's kind of a perfect segue into my next question, which is talking about your practice now. So y'all are all on this panel because you do understand the importance of service and being involved in your community. So if you can talk about kind of what you're involved with now, what service looks like now for you, and how you've kind of addressed this a little bit, but how you balance time in the community and time serving now with, your work and with your family and all of that. So Artie, maybe if you want to go first on this one.
So I think graduating from law school, I think probably almost any Baylor lawyer is an overachiever. So it is important to maintain that work-life balance. I know at one point when I pivoted to being an immigration attorney, I was taking on a lot of pro bono. Fortunately, someone stated you need to start prioritizing your pro bono work. So I would create a list and say, okay, I'm going to take these cases, and then I'm not taking any more pro bono cases till we finish those, and I'll tell potential clients, you'll be on the pro bono list. So I think it is important to monetize that, especially if you have your own firm. You have to look at paying the bills and paying your employees and so forth. And so it's easier to tell those clients that need pro bono work, well, I can't take your case now, but if I'll add you to the list and I hopefully can take it in the future. And then I think networking has been important as far as building my practice and building my reputation. So the service has come hand in hand, but that wouldn't happen if I can't be dedicated, like Haley mentioned. You've got to prioritize and make sure that if I am going to take on to be part of on a board of a certain community activity, that I am going to be able to show up for meetings and so forth, that I'm just not signing up to have that on my resume, that I am going to be active and be able to participate.
Rika, if you want to go next.
Yeah, sure. I definitely agree with what Artie's saying entirely. I think a big part of service is making sure when you sign up to do something, you're actually going to commit to it, and you're not just going to, half take on the responsibility, that you're actually going to take on full responsibility for it. I often have to talk to other people and remind them, just because something is being done pro bono doesn't mean the quality of your work needs to be reduced. You need to do just as good a job for your pro bono clients as you do for your retained clients. And this is another area too, where you have to figure out if service is important to you, which service is important to me, I have to carve out time for it. So I'm a pretty active member of the Junior League of Austin, where we do a lot of service within the Austin community. And like I mentioned earlier, I have a small child right now. He's 9 months old. I usually work until about 5:30-ish. And then from 5:30 to 7:30, I'm just purely with my son because that's important to me. But then after he goes to bed at 7:30, I'm back at my computer. I'm either working or I'm doing stuff for Junior League, making sure that my commitments that I've made to perform service in the Austin area, that I'm actually honoring. Because kind of like what Artie was talking about your reputation, that matters with your service commitment as well. If you tell an organization that you're going to do something and you don't do it, these are members of the community that are going to, talk about that and are going to remember that. And you want to make sure that you are leaving a good impact on all your organizations that you help out with, and not just looking like someone who's adding in some resume fillers, that you actually care about it and that you're actually trying to make the community a better place.
Tyler.
I get the benefit of just, as the judge, I get to kind of direct what my schedule looks like. It's nice being the one who gets to set the dockets and kind of lay out what my week looks like. And so I carve out time in that. It's still busy. There's still lots of stuff. I'm, as a solo presiding judge, I have part-time judges who help me out, but Denton's a medium-sized city. I still run it as a small town court. And so I handle everything from well, not jury trials right now, but if COVID wasn't around, I'd be doing jury trials, jail responsibilities, overnight search arrest warrants in the middle of the night. And so there's still a lot that happens, but I make sure that I schedule time to be able to tackle different projects, come talk to hopefully future Baylor students and convince them that Baylor Law is their best choice and you should apply and go to Baylor Law. I'm involved in a YMCA program called Texas Youth in Government, which encourages high school students to be involved in all aspects of government, whether that's legislative process and passing bills or the judicial process. I mainly focus on judicial aspect. And Haley helped me, I think, this year get some materials to, I write the case for the mock trial kiddos and the appellate court students as well. And so, oh, it's so much fun. So much fun. It's sad it's all going to be virtual this year because of COVID, but we have already hosted one virtual competition and we're gearing up for districts and then also state competition, all virtual this year.
Excellent. All right, Haley.
So I guess my service looks a little bit different because I work for legal aid, but the same things with kind of separating and having a time where you finish and still making sure you get a personal life apply. I'm working from home right now, and it's even harder to separate the two, but I try to find, this is the time I'm going to be off for the day. Sometimes things come up, complicated situations, you need to work for longer, but I do my best to delineate specific times for that. And I do work for the law school, for the practice court program. I do some things to help out. So I've got specific times that I carve out for that. And, judging mock trial when I can and things like that. So it's just, again, just like in law school, it's a matter of figuring out how to schedule everything in and make sure you don't overextend yourself, in my opinion.
Excellent. Okay, so kind of the last questions in the practice area block. X that. Do you guys stay engaged with the Baylor Law community, and how would you kind of describe the alumni community? Haley and Tyler, y'all have already touched on that a little bit as far as how you stay engaged, but if one of the two of you guys wants to take a stab at kind of how you would describe the community, and then the other two of y'all, if y'all want to talk about your involvement and also how you would describe it.
I would describe the law school as like a family. To be honest, everybody that I got to know through Baylor, all the staff, all of the faculty that I worked under. I was practice court associate, so I worked for the LLM program, so I kind of stayed on and stayed connected a little longer after I graduated. But really, they're always there for whoever needs help, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate, and how much they care and how much I know that I have people I can go to if something happens in my life. Like, especially me, I'm from Florida, my family's not anywhere near here. I have my husband, but if something were to go crazy wrong in my life, I know that I've got people here over at Baylor that would be glad to help out with anything like that.
Well, thanks to social media, I'm able to stay engaged with my classmates. And then being in Florida, for many years afterwards, when I had more of a general practice, I would receive referrals from classmates, and that was always fun. And then even being able to refer cases around to Baylor attorneys around the United States. So I'm grateful for that. And then a few years ago, my whole family, my dad, who's Baylor alumni too, we all went to Baylor homecoming game and had ice cream at Dean Tobin's house. So just doing that is fun. And then the best probably icing on the cake was when University of Central Florida and Baylor played each other in Fiesta Bowl. So I got to again have that camaraderie with classmates and in Arizona and see both my teams play each other.
Yeah, I think in Austin, we're not super far from Baylor, so there's a really large population of Baylor lawyers here, which is great. We have an Austin Baylor lawyer alumni group, and I'm on the steering committee of that, so that helps me stay connected with a lot of Baylor lawyers. But on top of that, it's just a good way to meet people who weren't there when I was there, because you're only in law school for 3 years, and there's people who've been going to Baylor Law for decades now. So it's awesome to meet older and younger alumni, as well as social media, like Artie was saying, helps keep us connected. There's a Baylor Law Facebook group where people are always posting like, hey, do you know someone who does this, or do you know someone who does that? And it's fun to be able to get to see what everyone's doing and get to tag and refer things to people. So yeah, it's really great and fun to stay connected with all the other Baylor Law alumni. Good referral source for those of us in private practice.
One aspect too is that if you go and like apply for a new job, if you're not going out and like hanging your own shingle, like the attachment of Baylor Law, if you get another person on the interview panel who's from Baylor Law, they know the quality of the education that you have behind you. There were several judges. I come from Fort Worth originally as a judge and then moved over to Denton, but there were several Baylor judges, and you just already know a lot about that person that you're dealing with because they have the Baylor lawyer title. You go to a lot of law schools to become an attorney. You go to Baylor Law School, you become a Baylor lawyer. So it's a specific breed that Baylor produces, and it's something that's unique. You're not coming out of Baylor just to be an attorney. You're a Baylor lawyer when you come out, and there's a lot that's said for that.
Great. Okay, so now the last set of questions in this this area. So and I'll give you all some choices. What has been, I guess, the most surprising thing about the practice of law or your time as a judge? Or what is one thing you wish you had known before you started into practice? Or what is your favorite thing about your practice area? Do you want me to call on you guys? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I'm proud of, again, very proud of my Baylor Law degree. I knew I was going to return to Florida upon graduation, but I stayed behind to take the bar exam, which was extremely beneficial because then I was taking some cases in Pennsylvania, and I was, with my Texas degree, could waive in and not have to take the Pennsylvania test. And I would just say that my Baylor Law, from day one, I was able to start practicing law. And I would go into court with seasoned attorneys, and I think they would think, oh, she's a newbie. And then they would be surprised when I would walk out with a victory, because Baylor, I knew how to cite proper objections and so forth that they had probably been a little too lax about. And then I think, and I don't remember what the other questions were. So I think the surprising thing about the practice of law, at least for me in the immigration field, is there still is a lot of collegiality, attorneys willing to help each other. And I think the biggest thing is try and find a mentor. Even if you're in law school, find a professor as a mentor. And then when you're out of practice, don't be afraid to ask somebody, even if it's just to invite an attorney for coffee and to learn more about their practice areas. I think had I done that and explored different practice areas, I might have found immigration law faster, and that would have saved some heartache when I was quickly burned out with just a general practice. I'm grateful that I only take immigration law cases, and that has freed up. It allows me to focus and probably provide, for me, better representation to my immigration clients.
Yeah, I agree about finding a mentor and finding someone to talk with, because I think there's so much to be learned just from experiencing things out in the field. And especially, I feel like every county is a little bit different. So when you start practicing in one county, it's nice to get to talk to some attorneys there and learn, what it's like. What is this judge like? What's the common thing to do when this sort of situation comes up? I think it's really valuable. I practice construction and real estate litigation. From the time I was in college, I always thought I was only going to do family law. And even when I was in law school, I took a lot of the family law oriented classes. And my first 2.5 years of practice were solely family law. I was surprised at how quickly I realized that wasn't quite what I wanted to do. If you had asked me on day one of law school, I would have thought I'd be doing family law until I retired. But I ended up kind of exactly what Artie was saying, by talking with other people and learning about other areas. I had never even thought about construction litigation. If you had asked me in law school, I would have been like, I didn't even know that there's lawyers who solely focus on that. And so finding out that area of law existed was surprising. And now that's what I devote 100 hours a week to, like, okay, cool. So long story short, one thing that's surprising is there's areas of law and focuses that people who don't really practice law or who haven't ever been a lawyer before don't even consider. So don't rule something out before you even know it exists.
All right, Tyler, I'm going to call on you.
So it's a lot there. Advice getting out or thoughts going in and then coming out is to make sure you understand the law school loan process. I think everyone kind of has that on the back of their mind with any issues with education. So especially if you're heading into something like Haley or I do, make sure you understand the requirements of public service loan forgiveness and understand what you need to do at the beginning. I think a lot of that's more clarified now than it was when I got out, but there's lots of benefits if you're heading towards public interest or like government type work to understanding the PSLF requirements. That's the big one for me, is to make sure that you got an understanding of loans and what's going to happen on your way out. So there's plenty of jobs that you'll make lots of money and can pay back loans through private. But if you stay in public, it's important to know what all the rules are and how to get those taken care of. So, and I know there's some education, lots of education that are provided along the way by the administration of Baylor on don't take out too many loans. If you live like an attorney while you're in law school, then you'll live like a law student when you're an attorney. Those sorts of things. But
Okay, Haley.
Sorry. I think the main thing for me, I went into law school wanting to be a prosecutor. I graduated from law school wanting to be a prosecutor. I applied for jobs wanting to be a prosecutor, and Lone Star Legal Aid was like this thing in the back of my mind. Like I had always liked service, and always been into doing doing legal aid type stuff, but not actually planning to work in legal aid. And I was very pleasantly surprised about what that really meant. I think I didn't really totally understand exactly what life is like as a legal aid attorney. I had offers local that paid less than what my legal aid job pays. So I think that they're, and obviously that's not the only consideration there, but I think that some people may knock it because they think that they're going to be making $30,000 a year and know that they can't live off of something like that. So I wish I had known a little bit more about what that entailed and what it's like, basically.
So Tyler already kind of answered this question, but for the rest of you, if you want to, for a wrap-up question, if there's one thing that you would tell yourself as you were choosing a law school or starting law school, what would it be? If you could go back and either tell yourself or tell a student who's looking at law schools now, what would it be?
I can say take classes that interest you. I think Reka kind of mentioned, and have an open mind. I would lean on my father, who, as a tax attorney, I knew I never wanted to take taxes, and the biggest mistake I ever did was listening to him about taking advanced corporation tax law, which I will never use, I will never need. And had I geared myself, especially when I did the summer abroad, to take more of the human interest classes, that would have helped me more with my career in immigration law and opened ideas. If I had to do, I have no regrets about Baylor, the path I chose. And I would just say probably after graduation, I may have explored more opportunities, such as maybe working for the Department of State, where I could travel and work for consulates, because I love that part. Even with, I never wanted to be a prosecutor, but now knowing what I know and the jobs and the working for Department of Justice and human trafficking and cyber law, I think there are so many opportunities that we might not know about it. And it's up to you to kind of look for those opportunities, not just think, okay, I'm going to be a prosecutor, I need to go work for the Harris County DA's office. There, you can look broader at the USA jobs for these federal positions and so forth that may be of interest.
I would say that first of all, that Baylor was the correct choice for me. So if I were to advise myself when I was deciding, I would say go for it, go do it. But on top of that, I think for law students or people that are about to become law students generally at Baylor, there's a lot of feeling of drudgery while you're in law school, and you start wondering whether that the toughness that Baylor is worth it. And after a bit, you realize, yes, it was, but in the moment you don't. And so I think that's just a perspective that it's good to remind law students or soon to be law students of.
I think it's important to one thing I would have told myself is take the initiative and reach out for these opportunities. I remember I had a friend who I really thought it'd be a cool thing to be like a researcher for a professor or something like that. And I was like, how does someone get that job? Well, one of my friends literally just emailed one of our favorite professors at Baylor, Professor Ryan, and was like, hey, can I be your research assistant? And he was like, sure, you can. Like, why didn't I do that? I should have just emailed him and asked. And so I took the initiative the next year, and I asked if I could be the student coordinator for the immigration clinic, and I got that opportunity. So just ask for your opportunities. If there's something you want to do, ask someone how to get it, and you might be surprised at how easily obtainable things that seem really out of reach are. And there's no harm in trying. The worst someone can do is say, sorry, we already filled that position, or no, we're not doing that right now. Go ahead and ask, and when you put your name out there, people know you're interested in that. Let professors know what you're interested in. The Baylor law professors know pretty much everybody in the world, it seems like, and if you let them know what you're interested, they're going to go out of their way to make sure you get connected with opportunities that are good for you and that you want, and possibly opportunities that you never even knew existed.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. So I really want to appreciate y'all taking the time and offering your words of wisdom.